Yesterday, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as well as some others, including Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Ilhan Omar, a few others, introduced in the House a resolution of disapproval to attempt to block the proposed $735 million in arms sales to Israel while the current campaign against Palestine is going on. The issue was that there's very little time for that block to actually happen. In fact, today is the last day it could happen, unless one thing happened, which is a senator signed on. And it was a really open question as to whether any senator would do that. Now, there's a couple of senators that are pretty good. One you might know of that we had some hopes. And on the show, we asked you to hashtag withhold the treats, I think it was, and put pressure on Senator Bernie Sanders to sign on to this effort. And what do you know? Senator Bernie Sanders is preparing to introduce a resolution today disapproving of the US sale of those precision-guided weapons to Israel, according to a draft obtained by the Washington Post. And he said in a statement, at a moment when US-made bombs are devastating Gaza and killing women and children, we cannot simply let another huge arms sale go through without even a congressional debate. I believe that the US must help lead the way to a peaceful and prosperous future for both Israelis and Palestinians. We need to take a hard look at whether the sale of these weapons is actually helping do that or whether it is simply fueling conflict, which is, I mean, that's kind of a funny statement, Ida. Like the weapons that we'd be selling them are the same sorts of weapons that are being used against Palestinian civilians right now. But hey, he signed on to it, and so the process can continue at least. What do you think?
So, like I said to you before this, it's interesting because works in the entertainment business. I have been warned over and over again not to speak on this because I want to make sure that I don't get accused of being anti-Semitic with people in the entertainment industry and I may lose work, which I think is anti-Semitic unto itself to say you can't speak about issues of the government in Israel is Semitic unto itself. Just to make the not being able, and like we've had this conversation about Barack Obama without being criticized, and no one is beyond reproach and correction, and many things can be true at the same time. I went to Israel and I've been to Palestine, and when I was in Israel, I got bumped really hard by this man. He pushed me in a restaurant, and my tour guide so it said, sorry, he thinks you're Palestinian. And I said, so if I was Palestinian, that was okay. And she was like, I don't know if it's okay, but nothing would happen. And that made me feel really bad because nothing happened anyway. And I was an American for him doing that to me. But all that to say, I also saw a bunch of kids walking around with machine guns because they have to serve in the military. And a lot of people disregard while they're pushing on this war. There are a lot of Israeli mothers whose kids have to go out and fight these wars because they are part of the military as well. And so when you have root attitude towards this issue because you're not there, because there's a lot of people chiming in on this who've never been to Israel or Palestine, who don't understand the tension and the conflict and the history of the conflict, and are chiming in because a lot of things have happened to a lot of people around the world. There have been a lot of people who have experienced genocide and oppression, and none of it has been okay. And that being said, doesn't justify Palestinian children being interrogated at 11 years old, being pulled out of their beds in the middle of the night. And you know what, John, was really interesting? I met a lot of Israeli mothers who were working on finding peace and solution with Palestinian mothers because they are fed up with this governmental dance that affects the everyday people. And so when we have these conversations about Israel and Palestine, it is important, and we are fair in our conversation when we talk about Palestine being occupied and what's happening in part of the world. A lot of us we're always picking teams that we're liberals, we're conservatives, we're pro-Israel, anti-Israel. You don't have to be anti-Israel to be pro-Palestine. You can say it's okay for the children and the people of Palestine to have peace. And it's also okay to say that government is corrupt worldwide and Israel and Palestine are not from that, and the people are the ones that always pay the price. So I mean, if I get canceled, if I lose work, if people get angry, I've actually been in Ramallah and I've had to see people hide to have lunch with us because they don't want to get in trouble. We have to start using the word terrorist correctly. People that run towards machine guns with knives in their hands are not terrorists. People are just pursued by cop. Like, we have that's ill-informed and also dangerous because we don't know what's going on over there. And nobody is calling for a second Holocaust for Jewish people. That's not what anybody's calling for when they say that Palestinian children and women and men and innocent young people should not be dying because government is corrupt.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about calling for peace is that it's peace for both sides. It's better. It can't be anti-Semitic to criticize the military actions of the current government of a country if you can look. I mean, look, I'm not an expert. I've basically been nowhere in the world, but I have actually been to Israel. That said, I'm still not an expert on the area, but clearly this strategy sucks and it gets a lot of Israelis killed. If you want to continue that for a few more decades, that means a lot of Israelis being killed. I personally want that not to happen. I want peace on both sides. So I don't know, criticize me or Ida or Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar if you want to, but we're still gonna advocate for our values, which also conveniently would produce less dead people on both sides. Now, really fast on the blocking of the weapons sale. Again, I wanna thank Senator Bernie Sanders for doing this. Hopefully now that he has done it, and he's gonna be attacked endlessly. Bernie Sanders, Jewish American, will definitely be criticized as an anti-Semite. Maybe him taking those slings and arrows will allow some other Democrats in the Senate to possibly sign on to it. We'll see. That said, it's probably not gonna stop the weapons from being sold. We didn't ask you to call the office because it would definitely work. We just think this is an important step. So lawmakers notably have never successfully blocked a proposed arms sale through a joint resolution of disapproval, which is what AOC and Bernie Sanders did. Although they have passed some in recent years. For instance, former President Donald Trump vetoed 3 resolutions passed by Congress in 2019 to stop arms sales benefiting Saudi Arabia and the UAE after the House and Senate voted to block the arms deals worth more than $8 billion. We cited those efforts by Congress during this week because it seemed crazy at the time to be giving these countries weapons that were then going to be dropped on civilians. The exact same situation. And Congress very easily tried to block those. This is part of the momentum, I think. This is moving in the direction of having a Congress that reflects a little bit more of the changing American disinterest in supporting the mass slaughter of civilians internationally. Whether this succeeds or not, it almost certainly will not succeed. The weapons deal will almost certainly go through. Ida, I'm at least happy that we're starting to see some who are willing to question it.
Well, I mean, there's been years of that people have been afraid to speak out because nobody wants to ever seem like they are anti the people of Israel. Like that's it. Somewhere along the line, it's gotten hijacked by this rhetoric that if you criticize the government of Israel and the actions against, the people of Palestine, that you are anti-Semitic. And I think that has stretched across from entertainment to government and all over the place. So I think that it is important for us to have honest, real conversations, and this all lives matter approach to everything that we take sometimes is very harmful to the people who are on the bottom end of the oppression. And so I just think that, our government has been very corrupt in providing arms to people all over the world, destabilizing governments all over the world. And then, when it comes to the brown people of Central America, they do that. They destabilize them for coming over here to seek refuge. Israel is a very specific area that has a very specific history. And, I think that it is important that we are honest of what's happening in the Middle East. And that is not to say that it is cool for, a rocket to be shot into Israel and kill children in Israel either. But if you understand the conflict and if you've seen the conditions of the people in Palestine and how they're living their lives as a result of the things that have happened, it's not cool.
Exactly. I think pretty much everyone gets that Hamas firing a rocket is bad. What we're fighting for is to get people to realize that a much more expensive, fancier missile killing civilians going the opposite direction is just as bad. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of people up until very recently that were willing to say that. And to the attempt, it's this shield. It's the creation of criticizing particular military tactics becomes anti-Israel. That doesn't make any sense. How many international viewers do we have of TDR that despised virtually everything Donald Trump did? Were they anti-American for not supporting one particular party or one particular politician? We pick and choose very carefully when the identity of a nation gets tied in with the actions of a particular man or a particular party. And that's almost always BS. It's almost always used to silence dissension and critique.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.